Well, this is quite the way to start off the New Year's.
Oh my gosh, I am so excited that it is a New Year. So Happy New Year for those of you who are just tuning in.
So everyone likes to set, or a lot of people like to set kind of these New Year's resolutions. Mm-hmm. And I think this could be one of them.
Genital adoration.
There you go.
Loving what you got.
Precisely. Developing.
Loving what you got over here and loving what you got over here.
Well, most times people are like, genital adoration. What is, I mean, we mentioned this on a walk to a friend.
So many people are like scratching what? Their heads like, is that a thing?
I adore the person's genitals. Like, is it just like a mental state? Or no, it's a practice of something that you actually do.
Okay.
And this is something that can really help to redefine or reframe your relationship, one towards your own genitals, mm-hmm. but also then towards your partner's genitals and vice versa.
Mm-hmm. I also think in a culture where there's so much criticism, so much analysis in both mm-hmm. sets of genitals, whether it's a vulva or a penis, how it should look and how it should smell, how it should sound. Like, there's all these kind of presuppositions of the perfect genitals, and then people, if they even look at their own genitals, because many don't, then they might go into comparison of what they mm-hmm. saw on porn or wherever, and then go, oh, I don't look like that, so therefore I'm not beautiful, or I'm not yummy, or I'm not sexy.
I mean, it's the same way that you have all these preconceived notions of what beauty is in terms of like the modeling world. But doesn't it feel really great to know that your partner finds you really hot? Or maybe there's just something about yourself that you find really hot. You're like, you know what? Sure, that person might be built this way, and that's the perfect way, but I love that I'm actually built this way for this, mm-hmm. this, and this reason.
Yeah. So,
well, what are some of the ways that genital adoration happens then?
Well, I think, first of all, being able to do it for yourself mm-hmm. is a really important healing, at least what I've seen. You can speak to the men's side, but for the women's side, nearly everyone has not actually taken a mirror mm-hmm. and looked. So yes. A majority of women, the only orientation they have to their vulva is feedback from the outside, which isn't always lovely.
So we'll get into some of the hows to do that specifically for mm-hmm. yourself versus a partner. But so this is where you literally take the time to admire your own
so there
genitals.
could be a visual admiration, mm-hmm. but then there's also sensational admiration, meaning admiring the textures and all the different sensations beneath your touch, admiring the fragrance, mm-hmm. Even admiring the sound, because when genitals are quite aroused, sometimes they make interesting sound.
So this is kind of a reframing now of it, because normally, typically, I think people, when they think about adoration, it's something that's verbalized to their partner, mm-hmm. and sometimes even descriptive of what they like about their partner's mm-hmm. genitals. So you have it, one, you can do it for your partner, one, you can do it for yourself. Mm-hmm. Some people even will do this like in sort of like groups on like maybe like a Facebook group, I guess like a hidden Facebook group where
somehow accidentally ended up in one of those groups uh-huh. and I left fairly quickly, but it was a mixed ed group, okay. but it was purely females putting up pictures of their vulvas and females and males commenting mm-hmm. on, always like positive commenting, yes. Affirming the genitals, and there were all kinds of genitals.
Now you've had workshops as well that have done this?
Yeah, so I have been a guest teacher at some schools where the Body Electric did mm-hmm. something like this, where it's like, they call it yoni talk, where you sit with the facilitator behind you, so you're leaning against them, okay. and you have a mirror between your legs, and you tell the story of your genitals as you look at them, and the whole group can also see your genitals. Okay. So it's sort of a very intense, I was like, wow, what is this? But it seemed to be extremely healing, because I think it's so exceptionally taboo that when it's facilitated properly, and you start to normalize mm-hmm. all the differences and also similarities, then something happens in the collective psyche around the genitals.
Well, we'll get a little bit into the why someone would do that in just a moment. But before we do that, you'd mentioned another scenario that I wouldn't typically think of as like genital adoration. In fact, normally you'd be like, oh, this is a taboo. And that's when you go to like a health practitioner mm-hmm. and Where it would be a taboo is if they're all of a sudden now like being super lusty on you and being like, oh wow, that's a really hot cock you have there, a really hot pussy, you know, versus being able to be like, this is a very healthy.
For a lot of ladies, they're very insecure. They're insecure about their smell and the coloring and all kinds of things. So to have a healthcare provider, when they're doing a pelvic exam, simply say like, everything looks great and healthy. You're very healthy. You're very, normal, even is a word that can often have a person relax because they don't know, quote unquote, the range of what normal is. Maybe they're outside of that range according to what they do know.
Well, when I do body work and I'm working intravaginally, that is a question that normally does get asked. Is,
almost everyone, yeah.
Am I normal? Like, how does this look compared to everybody else?
Also, in situations that I found myself in with new lovers, almost like the first time with a new lover, at males, almost all of them will ask, do you like it?
Yeah.
I haven't experienced it yet. It's just the visual. Like,
yes.
When they expose themselves, they'll say like, do you like it? And I find that so intriguing because I don't know a single female who opens her legs and goes, do you like it? Like that's a really like high level female confidence that I am not, in the circles of women that I've been in and facilitated, that particular attitude is not predominant.
I'll get it kind of with women that are like, they have had either partners in the past always tell them how beautiful their pussy is, or they feel that theirs is kind of one of the ones that culture has normally said is this way, and or those that like really like their own smell and taste, they're more likely to say that. And maybe it's like when you're going down on them, and then they're like, yeah, you like that, like the taste of that. It's sweet, isn't it?
But I think that's rare. I don't think that's a commonplace. I think a lot of women are extremely insecure. So this episode is about
I think a lot of guys are as well, which is why they say to you,
do you like it?
Do you like it?
Yeah. And I never, no matter what the situation was, would say anything other than yes. Because it didn't feel appropriate. And I'm like, well, actually, I do like it right now because it's what's in front of me. Maybe not the thing that I would want to take home forever and ever.
Hunger's the best cook. And if you're hungry in that moment, then I guess, the dish looks good.
So some other difficulties that I think are cultural.
The typical challenges people have with genital adoration, yes.
Well, in some cultures, genitals are mutilated, and so there's extreme agony attached to the genitals, and they're extremely altered. So in some cultures, everything's removed, and all the external genitalia is removed on the female body. That's a very extreme case, but there are literally millions of women going through that just in North America alone. So never mind other countries.
Yes, where they're being told their labia are too large, etc.
No, even like just in tradition. The traditional, I think it's more of a Muslim tradition, but there's traditions that actually, also some African traditions where they do that. That's their tradition.
The different forms of like...
And the women who are...
This is not even circumcision. This is more like literally it's like in labiaplasty, but it's just done traditionally without like going to... Yeah, so
that's an extreme version. So what a young girl learns is that her genitalia isn't okay as they are. And then they have it.
This gets altered to then normally kind of like signal that they're now moved into... adulthood.
Yeah, exactly. So that's like really extreme. But I think on a more regular level, there's plenty of shaming that happens. It could be anything like, I know some women who have labia that twirl, like kind of like hibiscus flowers. They come down and they twirl. And when they're engorged, they get really full. But when they're relaxed, they're kind of twirling down. And some of those women came to me and were shamed, saying, that was disgusting and ugly.
Because the internal lips or whatever seem too long.
Exactly. The shaming can happen from a partner, but also can happen like when you're in the locker room as teenagers, and
or even just internally like when you compare yourself even to pictures, for instance, because there is a typical type of vagina that's portrayed in porn. Though nowadays, if you look at some of these recommendations to when they should do labiaplasty, it's so extreme that even a lot of the porn stars
are protesting.
labia would be like
Yeah, exactly.
considered too large.
Exactly. So, and then also with guys, also in the locker room, you see what you see, but sometimes people are growers, not showers.
Yeah.
And so when you're relaxed, it doesn't always depict what.
And some people sprout at different times of their life too.
Exactly. So, and also, I think this is where men can have insecurities around having multiple partners, is not wanting their genitals to be compared to any past lovers. So there's this, not all men, but there is a movement of men who want virgins and only virgins. And I have a sense that some of it has to do with they don't want to be compared to anybody.
It could be they don't want to be compared to anybody. Sometimes people really feel that they need to be compared again, so that way then they can know where they are sort of in the ranking, or which partners of the past that they need to keep their partner away from versus ones that they don't.
And then in our Western culture, we have a strong objectification of the genitals, where sometimes you just want to have a body and not think about your genitals as a sexual object. And so one of the things that a gift that I find from you is there's times, yes, that you gaze upon me with sexual intent, but there's other times you just gaze upon me with a lot of love. And actually, that's sometimes the gaze that's harder for me to receive, are the loving ones, because there's no taking, there's no grasping, there's just an offer. And it's like, oh, okay, that's overwhelming. And just in the sense that I actually personally never really thought about how my genitals looked until some shaming, but we'll talk about that later.
So the difficulties in general are like shaming, comparison, and objectification, and then also
harm,
too, if there's been some functionality, like physical pain, typically then will mean that there's some emotional pain there.
Yeah.
Some emotional pain there can also manifest in as a physical pain.
Yeah.
All right. Well, given all these, what it is, all the things that can go wrong, why do it? And I think I'll start us off on this one. There is a really powerful opportunity to rewrite the whole story around how someone like sees their genitals, where it fits in with life. So if genitals are something that is like with a taboo such as sex, that there's a certain amount of shame there, so therefore you only do it in the dark, to actually bring it to the light of day and state what it is that you like about it, to be in a dialogue as well, not just in the bedroom, but to bring it out of the bedroom and speak about, the person's genitals and how they turn you on, or how you're looking forward to kissing them later that night, or that the smell of them drives you wild. This is a really big step in normalizing sex as well as the sexual conversation. So that way then it becomes more of an integrated part of life, as opposed to this thing that is just kind of this little secret that's kept in the corner there. Yeah,
so definitely genital adoration, which is what we're calling this activity, has a profound effect on the psyche. And that effect on the psyche allows for actually greater sexual function. When you feel a positive relationship with any part of your body, actually, this is why I do like body love meditation prior to teaching anything erotic, because if we don't actually like our body, it's very hard to relax into pleasure.
Well, then that leads into another thing. The second reframe is, and you mentioned this briefly, that it's not just a visual adoration, or even just verbal, but that you can verbally acknowledge, all the other senses, the taste, the smell, as well as the look.
And the sound.
The sounds that it makes. And, but then you can also, with sniffing, with making sounds,
with tasting,
and and eyeing and touching, you then are also giving it praise that isn't just by saying something out loud. And depending where the person's at, maybe a person feels very uncomfortable for them to like have you speak to their genitals, but just getting the touch and feeling it that way can be nice. Or for some people that maybe they feel that touch is too much for the first starting, to be able to actually have a conversation where you are talking directly to the person's genitals and praising it.
Like I've told so many women, like, have your lover talk to your vulva. The vulva has it hears everything, and she will engorge with delight being like praised. It's incredible what happens to the body, and there's a few reasons for that. What we hear affects also like our adrenals, and in Chinese medicine that's linked to kidney energy, which rules the sexual energy. So when we hear beautiful words said in beautiful tones, there's something that starts to happen that's deeper than the conscious mind.
Yes.
And it really does affect functionality in a positive way. I'm not going to tell the whole explicit story, but just a quick story of, it was really powerful for me when a lover placed their cheek over my vulva and just rested there. No one had ever done that to me up until then. And there was something so intimate and gentle and sweet about it that it gave me a whole new frame to operate from.
Well, and I think this goes into the piece on most people praise, the thought of praising genitals like, oh, when it's in its most glorious, whatever that is defined to be. So that could be as a woman is like super swollen and wet, or for a guy, that it's like extra hard and stiff or whatever. But the ability to have this part of your body loved on when it's just in a relaxed state. So you're not giving anything, you're not receiving anything, you're not taking, you're not allowing, like there's no exchange, you're just being with it. And that is enough. I think that's why when the person laid their cheek on your genitals, that then it just felt so warm and inviting and loved on. And I know for myself, when I'm not erect, I had the same experience of a partner just sitting there and looking, and then like holding it to their face and just resting there. And it was as if I could just feel this deep relaxation entering my bones, which then turned into this deep acceptance, so that it's this part's just awesome in whatever state it is, which then turned into like this intense aliveness inside myself. And I remember when that cheek then was removed, there was just a buzz of joy there, and like really feeling appreciated on like a very, very primal level.
I also think genital adoration, first doing it for yourself, it's quite profound. Especially when we were speaking, say, with Dr. Olivia, one of the prescriptions she gives someone who has STIs, especially visual ones like herpes, there's so much shame. She will literally prescribe to the patient, sit in front of the mirror and tell your genitals how beautiful and wonderful they are over and over again until you release all of the yuck that you're holding. And I, as a psychologist, find that super profound because when we can go into radical self-acceptance, that's when the moment of healing starts to happen. But when we stay in shame and hate on ourselves, the thing that's bothering us just even can worsen.
Well, and this is maybe then we can give this as the final little takeaway hint before we go into the member section that we're going to talk about there. Is that if you find yourself struggling with genital adoration, you may wish to start with yourself. And if just giving words of praise doesn't seem feasible, doesn't seem possible, you can literally start off with a journaling exercise. Stream of thought, take a look, gaze at yourself if you're able to, or if you're not yet, just start writing whatever words, descriptive words come to mind. And do this for like once a day for a week. And notice that maybe the first several days you do it, there might just be a whole bunch of nasty, negative words that start coming out. But just keep writing it out, and then see what happens. Because then, normally, all of a sudden there's a switch. And then other aspects start to get noticed, start to get praised. As you get bored with all of the negativity, you've expressed that, but then another level of observation emerges, and then these beautiful transformations can start there. Being able to do it for yourself will also prime you to have the skill to do it with another person. So that's why the place with self is important. Also, starting with yourself will teach you a little bit how to receive praise, because sometimes it's overwhelming to receive praise from a partner if you've never even experienced it with yourself. And it helps the partner out. If you can tell your partner, like as they're going at it, it's like, oh yeah, you like how it has this, you like how it does that. They'll be able to hear in your voice, this is something that you like. And it's the same way. If you tell a person to look at a painting and be like, oh, tell me what's horrible about that painting, then they're going to look at it that way.
Yeah.
Or if you're like, isn't that painting incredible? Then they're going to be looking for what's incredible there. So no different than with yourself. But shall we wrap up this portion here?
Yeah, so in the explicit part, we're going to really share how to do this, and there's so many beautiful ways to do this, and some personal stories.
Yeah, both personal stories of where things went really well and where things also...
And also with clients, because that's also part of our work.
Well, here we go.
To join us for the complete and explicit version of this podcast, just simply upgrade your membership and you'll get instant access.